This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post, broadcasting to you live from the Fort Hall School of Government in Nairobi, Kenya. On this show, we take a look at some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 31st of May, 2022, and I am AX.
I'm Serbia.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. The Daily Nation, courting disaster.
Yes.
The Standard, the trouble spots.
Okay.
The Star, Gideon at center of Raila Kalonzo talks. And finally, the People Daily, aspirants race for IEBC's green light. So if you will allow me, I will begin with my submissions today.
Blow us away.
For months now, RUTO's UDA party and Kenya Kwanza Alliance have positioned themselves as the Fort Knox of politics. They thought nothing could harm them and nothing could stop them. But they forgot that the reason for their perceived strength was because they were the only ones campaigning.
Indeed.
But as we get closer to the election date, their soft underbelly has slowly been exposed. Instead of building his political party on the solid rock, UDA sits like a house of cards. All flash, no substance. A house of cards is destined to fail because it has a weak foundation. They look very impressive, yes, but are just as easy to destroy. This is UDA for you. Anytime the party has been put to a major test, it has failed. When BBI was put in front of the MCAs, only 4 out of 550 Gema MCAs voted against it. They supported it wholesale despite the fact that UDA openly opposed it. When UDA held their nomination process in central Kenya, the turnout was abysmal. In some places, it was as low as 2%, despite their claims that the mountain is locked in their favor. And now, because Kenya Kwanza has no intention of meaningfully sharing power, it is struggling to keep leaders happy. Most recently, the vice chair for UDA, Kipruto Arap Kirwa, said that he was done with the party and decided to join the Azimio coalition instead.
Yes.
Many in the DP's camp would like to downplay the defection of Arap Kirwa, but his exit signals something deeper. Why is RUTO not being trusted by one of his own from the Rift Valley, RUTO's stronghold, no less? He tells us he left because UDA is run like a dictatorship, and usually where there is smoke,
There's fire.
there is fire. In other words, we cannot just ignore the defection of Arap Kirwa, like they say, and what it tells us about UDA and what it tells us about RUTO. We take note that Kirwa is actually a very seasoned politician. He served as an MP for multiple terms and even served as agricultural minister in the Kibaki administration. Now add to this the fact that the defection of Arap Kirwa implies that in the last 4 months, both the treasurer and the vice chair of UDA have ditched the party. This reminds me of the story of the 18th century Potemkin villages in Russia. One day, Catherine the Great visited the region of Crimea. When she arrived, she was very impressed by all the buildings and vibrant developments in the city. But what she did not know was that the governor, Grigory Potemkin, constructed fake settlements to conceal the true condition of the city.
No.
All that development was fake. And so I'll conclude by asking this question. Is UDA simply just a Potemkin village? Flashy and big, but hollow and empty inside.
Wow.
It could be because of their big game plan. So, I'll tell you the game plan. In 2017, the Maraga court provided the cookbook for how to misengineer an election. And according to Maraga, this spoiler is process. If electoral procedure has not been followed or violates the principles of the constitution, then an election will be nullified. And lately, IEBC has been more incompetent than usual, and game theory teaches us that when someone is behaving suboptimally, they are nested in multiple games. First, on voter registration. An audit by KPMG of the voter registration indicated that 16,000 BVR kits were used in voter registration. However, the number of BVR kits purchased by the Commission in 2012 was 15,000. This means that a third party was in control of 1,000 kits. And if this is the case, then this person might use the kits to rig or misengineer the election. And this is not the first time KPMG has found an anomaly in the voter register. In 2017, KPMG discovered discovered that 1.3 million dead voters were still in the voter register.
Whoa.
The first law of collective responsibility is people don't blame who was responsible. People blame who was in charge. And Chebukati was in charge.
Whoa.
And if this is happening under Chebukati's watch, it will happen again on August on a grander scale. Second, out of the 50,000 polling stations, roughly 1,200 are without access to 3G. The MADARAKA court in 2017 found that technological capacity is not an excuse for failing to adhere to electoral procedure.
Yes.
But the failure to improve these capacities will constitute an electoral fault, capable of justifying the nullification of results. And in the background of all this, IEBC is doing the bare minimum to address it.
Yes, they are.
Is this deliberate? Third, the best way to influence electoral results is at the local level, that is, the polling stations.
Yes.
Joseph Stalin once said, those who vote decide nothing. Those who count the votes decide everything.
Yep.
To be able to rig, one has to plan ahead by ensuring they have planted their people on the ground. And in light of this, is it merely a coincidence that all the returning officers in Kisii are all Kalenjin? Does it mean IEBC couldn't find any cases that are qualified to undertake this exercise? Usually, in every locale, returning officers are representative of the area they have been assigned. Doesn't this warrant suspicion if the station is staffed with people affiliated to one side of the political divide? And if this is just in Kisii, what is happening in other areas that we don't know of? Apart from these glaring peculiar events, there is still the question of IEBC favoring members from one particular party. IEBC made an announcement that it would bar parties from fielding candidates if party lists fail to adhere to the 2/3 gender principle. UDA party refused to meet the deadline, which was set on 9th May 2022. Even hours to the deadline, the party was yet to revise its list. But strangely enough, instead of disqualifying UDA, IEBC extended the deadlines for compliance to 13th May 2022. What is my point here? Someone is following the recipe of the MADARAKA cookbook on how to misengineer an election. And he's doing this by messing with the process. The only person who stands to benefit is someone who has a stake at the presidency, but the election terrain does not currently favor him. And because of these desperate times, the person is likely to turn to desperate measures like co-opting the IEBC. In our view, RUTO is the most desperate candidate as he has a lot to lose. Is it likely RUTO has seen his imminent defeat after the blunder of a running mate that he made? Every day that Gachagua opens his mouth, UDA loses votes. Is it also likely that RUTO has finally realized that you cannot possibly buy a Kikuyu? Since Mother Karua joined Azimio, she has continued to chip away at his support in Mount Kenya. And of course, with the elephant that is the ICC in the room, RUTO will employ even the most extreme tactics he can get to the presidency. Therefore, isn't it obvious that any impartiality in IEBC will benefit the prince from Sugoi? If at all Chebukati is compromised, then we do not trust him to referee the election, or should he respectfully resign?
Okay, so today I would like to talk about the sword of Damocles hanging over our proverbial head of our 2022 elections. It's not the IEBC, it's not the chief hustler and his cheap populism, and surprisingly, it's not our courts. The sword of Damocles in the 2022 election is the International Criminal Court, or ICC. Let me explain. In case you've forgotten, before the ICC is one Mr. Paul Gisheru, a lawyer charged with coordinating the witness tampering scheme that froze the RUTO Sang case. And this is not just me saying this. According to the ICC, this scheme was, and I quote, conducted for the benefit of and in coordination with William Samoei Ruto, end quote. Now, ever since the ICC adjourned in May, they have been quiet, perhaps too quiet. Perhaps deals are being struck, concessions have been made, and bargains have been negotiated. But because the Fort Hall School of Government does not launder speculation, today I want to talk about impact. We know what might happen if Gisheru is convicted. The precedent established by the Jean-Pierre Bemba case, where Bemba was arrested and convicted after his lawyer was convicted of witness tampering, suggests that the same will happen to William Ruto. Like Bemba, will a sealed warrant of arrest be issued? If so, and Ruto leaves the country to woo the diaspora once more, he will be arrested at zero option. And once arrested, he is headed for The Hague. But what does this mean for our election? Once in The Hague, will William Ruto cease to be a presidential candidate, or will he run in absentia? And if he runs in absentia, can he win and govern in absentia? Now, the Constitution is clear on what happens if a presidential candidate dies. Read together, Articles 138b and 138(9) oblige the IEBC to conduct new elections in the event a candidate dies. This fresh election will be held after 60 days. But what happens if a candidate is imprisoned? Put simply, our laws are silent about what happens when a candidate is arrested by an international tribunal for potential war crimes. And in this silence, a constitutional crisis emerges, one that will be bitterly fought out in court. This crisis only worsens if RUTO is elected come 9th August 2022. Remember that in 2013, when the ICC allowed President Kenyatta to appear via video conference, the court also held that this authorization did not constitute a rule. And so we must ask, will RUTO govern from The Hague through Zoom, Skype, or TikTok? On this matter, again, the Constitution is silent. In Articles 131 and 132, the authority and functions of the President are identified, but whether or not they must physically be present to dispense them is not. Now, one would imagine the drafters envisioned a physically present President, but they failed to put this vision to paper. And while the DP posts exist, a Deputy President is not a President, no matter how much RUTO wills it to be. And so we will go to court again to answer a very obvious question. Can a president govern in absentia? Now, what is my point here? The ICC is the sword of Damocles hanging over our election, a sword with the power to unlock two constitutional crises in one fell swoop. A crisis of election if RUTO is elected before the election, and a crisis of governing if he wins but he is still arrested. As Gisheru's trial resumes this month, please pay attention.
Paying attention, we will
Really?
do
Yes.
very clearly. So we have a three-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines for you. We ask ourselves these three questions. Is the headline topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And finally, is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? The Daily Nation. I'll reread the headlines for you. The Daily Nation, courting disaster. The Standard, the trouble spots. The Star, Gideon at center of Raila Kalonzo talks. And the People Daily, aspirants race for IEBC's green light. So what do you guys think of the headlines today?
I like the Daily Nation. It's topical. I think all eyes are on the ICC now.
IEBC.
IEBC.
Oh.
IEBC.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. I kind of also like the Standard. It speaks about the counties that are being mapped out for violence. You know, places like Nairobi, Mombasa, Kericho, Kisumu, Uasin Gishu, and Mombasa. And it does give an interesting account of what needs to be done. But yeah, I like the IBC one. That's the main thing. It's the most topical thing of the day. So do we go with the Daily Nation?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so there you have it. Our winning headline is the Daily Nation, courting disaster. Okay, on to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a three-part criteria that we use to judge them for you. We ask ourselves these simple three questions. Are the cartoons humorous or dry? Are they satirical or pessimistic? And finally, are they effective or just plain lazy? So why don't we start with the Daily Nation? Serbia, take it away.
Okay, so we have a caricature of Professor Wajakoya walking into IEBC. His shadow is marijuana. He expects to be...
Oh, okay.
He expects... Oh my goodness. He expects to be cleared as a presidential aspirant. Chebukati and his aide are doing the vetting, and of course Wajakoya was not cleared.
Like
So,
no next.
Yeah, they are saying no next. So we can also see a clown
Yeah,
is in the waiting room.
Who is
I
the
think
clown?
Perhaps this means that most of the presidential candidates this year are jokers.
Potentially, yeah.
How apt.
I love how Chebukati is not even looking at it before
yeah.
he's like,
He's very
no.
confident.
It's like he has a sixth sense of the type of person walking in.
But I think even if his bid was rejected yesterday, I think he still has another chance. He has been told to come back on June 2nd.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So let's move on to the Standard. We have a caricature of what looks like to be the governor candidate for Jubilee, that is Polycarp Igathe. He's holding on him a rack of booze. and he's got what are they called?
Apron.
An apron where he's saying, Igade for Gov, Nairobi. And everyone in the club is sort of just looking at him
Is
like...
this even a club?
It's not even a club.
It's not even a club.
Where is the mother with a child?
You've got everyone just looking at him. I think, number one, over the weekend, Igade took his controversial, his interesting vote-seeking antics to the city's nightlife, which was a bit interesting. But he's also has had a number of gimmicks in which he's used to sort of get the voters' attention and request them to vote for him and prove that he's going to serve them. So I think it's an apt cartoon, very funny. But let's go to The Star.
Okay,
Yes.
so the cartoon depicts Raila on one side offering Kalonzo the chief minister's seat.
Yes.
Kalonzo is leaned over and looking at Ruto, holding a stereo near Wetangula, who is holding onto his Senate seat. Alfred Mutua, of course, is watching behind very, very closely. Very closely. Now, the context for this cartoon is the coalition agreements that are being developed by both coalitions, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. Now, Wetangula was promised the speaker's job, hence the speaker.
Oh, that's why the speaker... Oh, my.
That's why the speaker is there. He was offered the speaker job by Ruto.
He's trying to walk into it, but he's holding on to his Senate seat.
He is holding on to his Senate seat.
Oh.
So this is the Star cartoon. Now, the caption for the cartoon is, when taking chances is not an option.
I really didn't see that speaker
cartoon.
thing. That one has caught me up.
Guys, where is Mudavadi in that cartoon?
Where is Mudavadi?
I don't know. They chose Mutua above him, clearly.
Poor Madidi.
I mean, does that not tell you where he stands in the Kenya Kwanza coalition?
That's for you to decide. So the question is, out of all these, we can call them interesting cartoons, do we have a winning cartoon, or do we allow them all to go to the trash? I vote...
I think I like The Star. For the Wajakoya cartoon, it's just plain and lazy. Basically, that's... But I love the clown. I think...
The clown at the back.
The clown is a nice touch.
Okay.
I'm also a fan of the Star. It's intellectual, it's humorous,
And that
satirical.
speaker joke was just hilarious. So we say that we give the cartoon, The Star as our winning cartoon.
As winning cartoon.
Okay, there you have it. The Star is our winning cartoon.
Yes.
So thank you so much for watching Winning Headlines. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that like button. We're also on your TV screens. Find us on Pang Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times. I will leave you with this quote from an author known as George R.R. Martin. And he says, the greatest fools are oftentimes more clever than the men who laugh at them. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
And a happy Madaraka Day.